folks. Welcome back. Chris Garlock, Michael Redmond. I know it's been a minute since we saw each other, so thanks for your patience. We're just talking to our producers about how we had promised to be back in January, but for the record, we didn't say which January, right, Michael?
Right. Probably next year.
Yeah, so we're early. Anyway, it's very good to see all of you, and Michael, of course, great to see you. Just a reminder, folks, this is interactive. We'd love to see your comments and questions. We've got Stephen, we got Eva-Dee are on hand to help us manage that. We got a lot to ground to cover, so we're going to get right into it. We got to catch up on how things are with the pandemic in Japan. We want to find out about what Michael's been up to. We want to talk about the US Go Congress, which is coming up. It will be online again this year. And oh yeah, we have a game to talk about too, right, Michael?
Yeah, that's what we came here for, right?
Oh yeah. All right, let's start with the pandemic. You look great. I'm assuming you're all vaccinated and all safe and all that good stuff.
No. The vaccinations are slow in Japan.
I heard, and it may have been you that told me, a very low percentage of vaccinations, right?
Well, right. Obviously, it's because they don't make the vaccine in Japan itself. America now has most of the vaccines, I think, and they're being imported. And so they only started like a month or so ago. And they started with 65 years older age group. And that group is moving forwards now. But of course, the problem was that at first, I heard in America that people had trouble with the system at the first.
Yes, we did.
And there were some hiccups in Japan too. And part of the problem is that people who are old have a tendency to have trouble with the internet and getting reservations on the internet and stuff like that. So there's a problem. There was some problems there. It was a bit slow at start. It's speeding up now that they're moving towards the, I think it's below 60 age group now. So that's my age group actually. So I have a chance, but I haven't got the letter yet. I have to get a form which will allow me to make a reservation. So I'm still waiting for that. And it depends on the area you're in and how quickly they think they can actually do the vaccinations. They're sort of limiting the number of notices that they put out.
So just curious, because here, the place, I'm in Maryland, and we actually had an amusement park, Six Flags, and it was being run by I think it was the National Guard, and I literally never got out of the car. You drove up, stuck your arm out the window, they jabbed your arm, you went and waited for 15 minutes to make sure that nothing bad happened, and then you drove off. How are they handling that in Japan?
I don't think they have any drive-ins at this point. They have some mass facilities that they're going to do large numbers. But now I think they're just doing it in major cities like Tokyo and Osaka. But I think there's also going to be the option of going to a local. People in Japan tend to have a local doctor that they like to go to, and I think that they're going to have that option. And the fact that they won't have to commute is probably a plus, because most of the commuting in central Japan is done on the train, so that's public transportation. So people at this time, people are sort of wanting to avoid that.
Yeah, no, I have not been on the metro here in DC in 14, 15 months, and frankly, not planning to jump on again anytime quickly. So what is the situation in terms of, and I know you've got the Olympics coming up. I know it's a bit controversial. Public opinion, I believe, is pretty solidly against the Olympics, but it looks like they're going forward. I understand that they're having trouble recruiting volunteers. Any information on that?
Well, basically, they're sort of changing the plan as they go along, and it was like that from the beginning, because basically we're up against this virus that no one really knew anything about.
Right.
And so at first they were saying they were probably going to do it without any spectators, and now it seems like they're going to try to make it with spectators, something like 10,000 or something like that. And it all depends on the relaxed rules. So up to a few days ago, there was what was called a state of emergency. And it's not the same as the state of emergency might have been in America or other places. They were allowing restaurants to open, but they
Okay.
figured that alcoholic beverages would be dangerous because people would loosen up and take their masks off and stuff.
Okay, I see
So,
their point, but I'm still kind of feeling if the alcohol kind of helps. But anyway, that's just me.
right. Yeah, in a way,
As you
yeah,
know.
right. Um, and so they've relaxed that part. But but the restaurants were having a bad time anyway.
Yeah,
Obviously, for the
yeah,
reasons we gave, it's less likely for people to go to the restaurant if there's no alcohol there.
right. And that's a big profit center too. You make a lot of money off your
Yeah,
alcohol, not so much off the food.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And of course, that part of the idea was that because when people start drinking, they're going to stay longer in the restaurant, and that's a risk also.
right.
And so they were, so the way they were doing it was bad for the restaurants, obviously, but it was more relaxed, I think, than it was in the States or in some other places.
Hmm.
But I think it was partly alleviated by the fact that they did have the mask rule. People were
Hmm.
expected to wear masks in public areas, and the Japanese are pretty good at following rules like that. So I'd say that that was followed pretty universally. Like there
Well,
were a few the exceptions were so exceptional that it would get into the news.
I wanted to ask you because, frankly, the first time I ever saw people wearing masks, outside of a hospital, was in Japan. When I would
Right.
visit, and you would see
Hmm.
people, not everybody, but you'd see people routinely,
Hmm.
on mass transit or walking around town with masks on. So it seemed something that people in Japan were much more comfortable with. But when we were
Hmm.
chatting before we started the broadcast, you were saying that even in Japan, people are kind of maybe reaching their limit.
Yes. Well, before COVID-19, I'd say that most people who wore masks, unless they were doing construction work or something, they had special masks. Most people who wore masks in public were having some kind of a like
You
hay
know,
fever, some kind of
respiratory issue.
right. Yeah. So they were wearing. They tended to like to wear masks in addition to medicine or instead of medicine. It's a kind of a cultural thing. They were relatively they are relatively happy with wearing masks.
Hmm. Interesting, because it's, as you know, it's been a huge flashpoint in this country
Mhm.
to this day. To this day,
Mhm.
I just did a big swing through the Northeast visiting family, and the mask regulations are all over the place. I mean, they've got
Mhm.
some
Right.
places they've got notes, signs that say if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. But they don't. I have a vaccination card. Nobody. I've had it for months now, and nobody's ever asked to see it. I'm very disappointed. I may show it on this show before I'm done. I just
Okay. Yeah.
nobody's asked to see it. But they'd have the sign saying that if you were vaccinated, you could come in without a
Right.
mask, but they didn't
Yeah.
check.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I can sort of understand that the people the restaurant or whatever would not want to really check if they have the choice.
don't ask, don't tell, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's check in on how you've been doing with competitions. When we last spoke about 7 months ago, I think the Neon Kian was starting to do some very socially distanced, I mean, very controlled
Mhm.
face-to-face competitions. What's happened since then?
It's pretty much back to normal or a new kind of normal. We are playing tournament games
Hmm.
face to face, and like at this time with super strong Go programs, computer programs. Playing remote there's a lot of problems with it. It would be much more difficult to make it fair. And so we're playing face to face. There was a period where the number of games was fairly limited, but that's
Hmm.
passed.
Hmm.
And we do space out a little bit. So we used to play just on Thursdays, and now we play on Mondays and Thursdays, and they can schedule games for us on either day. So
I see.
we've increased the number of days we go out, and we've reduced the number of games played on one day. So people are spaced out a little bit. In some tournaments, they have these um, barriers that they put between the players. I'm not really sure how that works.
Like the plexiglass
Little
things that we
plastic,
see in the stores. Yeah,
transparent.
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. How is that?
it's fun. There's room for you can actually see it on Japanese TV. I think if they're still doing it. But yeah, there's room for you to reach over the board and put your stone down. I don't really know how effective that is, but it's supposed to be working.
So I don't know about Japan. Here in the United States, they call it COVID theater, which is that when they do it, it's meant to make you feel good. But apparently, the airflow studies say that it's meaning, and I'm sure we can have scientists, viewers out there can tell me if I'm wrong. But what I've read is that it's more about making you feel protected,
right?
But not so much.
Yeah. Well, I've heard some people say that it's actually bad for the airflow.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, people can look that up and let us know. All right. We're gonna bring in Stephen Hu in just a second to talk about the U.S. Go Congress. But before we get to that, what's the I guess coming up with the let's just go ahead and get Stephen in. Actually, we'll get Stephen in and we'll come back. We'll talk about the game. Stephen. So first of all, tell folks where you are.
Hi, it's good to be back. I'm on the air. It's amazing.
I know. It's great to have you back. Stephen, along with Eva-Dee, has been doing just wonderful work last year, getting all of our shows on the air. So we should officially thank both Stephen and Eva-Dee for that. But Stephen has been safely in China for, over a year now, right, Stephen?
Yeah. I've been in Beijing, and that's where I also organized the previous Ego Congress, and I'm staying in the exact same room this year.
I recognize it.
Yeah.
So tell us about this year's Go Congress, when it's going to take place, and why everybody should drop everything. Don't go away from this broadcast, but you should go ahead and sign up for it now.
Right, exactly. So this year's Ego Congress will take place from July the 17th to 25th. The dates have been set, which means that it's 3 weeks from now, and already 173 people have registered. That's a lot already. And we have some very exciting events. One of them being the Sumego Challenge, the Life and Death Challenge, which is original.
And what idiot is running that? Oh wait, that's you. Sorry. I'm teasing you. No, that's great. Sumego is one of my favorite things. So I'm so glad. And I will tell you, Stephen, every time I would ask a pro about what I should do to get stronger, you know what they told me, right?
Always the life and death problems, right?
You got it.
Yeah. So that should be cool. We have some new events coming up, and we also have all the old events, such as the Ego Congress Open, the Bliss Tournament, the DDK Tournament, and of course, we're going to have a lot of tournament broadcasts like the City League, which is taking place on Friday, July the 23rd. You can expect to see Chris and Michael once again here on AGA Twitch.
And that is breaking news,
exciting.
Folks. We just confirmed that tonight. So you heard it here first. So make sure you're there on the 23rd. Those are great games. The City League, they've got people from all over the country competing. So those are usually very interesting matches. So I'm looking forward. I hope my hometown DC is going to be in the mix. I actually haven't been tracking it. Do you know?
Oh, me neither. My guess is that New York City will be in the finals once again because they're so strong.
As always.
We'll find out. These are the best games you can expect from any North American based player. So either way, it should be a very interesting affair, and we're excited to cover it once again. And let's find out what happens.
One question before you go, Stephen. You are in Beijing, which, like Michael, is something like 12 hours ahead of us. Like it's tomorrow morning where you guys are, right? How on earth are you going to help run this Congress with a 12-hour time difference? I mean, I know you're Superman, but gosh.
Yeah, it wasn't easy last year. I think my approach to Congress planning this year has been a bit different. I have a full-time job now as a Go content producer, so I actually deal with Go stuff all day, every day now. It hasn't been easy because for me, there's a 12-hour time difference between me and you, which means that the mornings and evenings are reversed. So that's always tricky.
You get to work, all day, but all day and all night. You don't need much sleep, right, Stephen?
Yeah, I might have to take a week off work actually. So I'm really.
Let me know if you need a note.
Yeah, I probably won't play in the tournaments, but I will be here, of course, arranging all the broadcasts for everyone. So make sure that you tune in to this channel right here. This is AGA Twitch, US Go Web, and make sure that you sign up for all those fun events that we have in store. It's going to be very exciting. We've been working very hard behind the scenes to put it all together. And this year, there are a lot of brilliant volunteers who have sacrificed a lot of their time to make that happen. So please make sure that you check it out and sign up. It's free. If you're an AGA member, all of the events should be free. And the website is already up. It is www.gocongress.org. So make sure that you check out that link in the Twitch chat. I don't know if we're getting the same numbers as last year, because last year was really crazy, but we are hoping to achieve at least more or less the same this year. So we'll see what happens.
Well, here's the thing, folks. If you've ever been to a Congress, you know how fabulous they are. And, so just go ahead and sign up because it's going to be great. If you've never been, this is really your chance to get a taste of it. You don't have to travel. You don't have to book a flight. You don't have to take time off from work, and so it's a great way to see what all the fuss about the Go Congress is. Lots and lots of cool stuff, and you don't even have to leave wherever it is that you're holed up. So, definitely something to check out. Stephen will put the link in the chat. You can go, you can check it out. You can see who else is registered, and, bring all your Go friends. And the thing is, too, you can sign up for a tournament, or you can just drop in for different events. So it's not even like you have to commit to a whole week. And then those of us that go every year, and I'm just missing all that camaraderie. Michael's been there, Stephen's been there. We get to see each other, spend all this time together. But, it's like everything else during COVID. It's not the same as the real thing, but, we do what we can do. So thank you, Stephen. We'll have Stephen back at the end of the show to talk that up some more and probably give us some more teasers as to what's coming up. Thank you, Stephen. And last, before we go to the game, I remembered what I meant to ask you, Michael, which was the other thing. You have been very busy with your channel, which you had just launched before we took our break. And so I just wanted to check in and see how that's been going. And hopefully a lot of you folks that are here are already hooking up with Michael on his Go channel. But just give us a quick overview on how that's going.
Yeah, well, at first it was a lot of work, really. Well, I'm still doing a lot of work on it, but doing things that I'd never done before, like editing videos, filming videos, and I'm on Twitter also, promoting my channel and stuff like that. And so everything that I did was brand new to myself. I had to learn how to do it. So that was the tough part in the beginning. From the start, there was a lot of people who signed up to my channel, very helpful. So yeah, it's encouraging when people sign up to your channel.
Well, you're a popular guy, dude. Come on.
Thanks. And so I'm still sort of figuring out what exactly I'll do with it. I've been publishing one video each day, actually.
That is just, can I just say, that is totally not surprising knowing your work ethic, but it is an amazing accomplishment.
Right.
Seriously.
Yeah, well, if it would have been a lot more difficult if I wasn't doing the life and death and Tetsuji problems, which are relatively easy to sort of batch produce. And so I can produce a whole batch, a month's worth in a few days. And it's relatively easy. So it's not as if I'm doing the full 30-minute videos, which I put those out maybe about once a week.
Okay.
And now, so recently I've been starting to do some live streams. So when I do a live stream, you'll see it on OGS actually. There's going to be an announcement on OGS.
Excellent.
And I'll be tweeting about it, and it'll be announced on the community page of my channel also. And up to now, like I've been doing it when I see a really interesting game coming up, like an international championship match, or if I played a good game that week, like the day before yesterday, I actually did a live stream on my channel about a game I played last week. So if the game was interesting, or I felt I played better than usual, maybe I'll do a live stream about it. And so it's been sort of spontaneous so far. I'm going to try to schedule lives and just do whatever I have material for at the time. So that's what I'm moving forwards to. And I finally felt that I had time to come back to the AGA Twitch channel. So I was a bit occupied for a bit there. perfectly fine. I mean, we churned out a lot of content in that first segment there. So there, I got busy. Same thing. I started really getting into the whole podcast world, and like you, it's one thing I forgot. Yeah, I forgot to I forgot to push my Patreon page. I have a Patreon page.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm on Patreon. And for anyone who's not familiar with that, that's a site where people can support me. So patrons who will just give a donation to my channel and support me that way. And there's various gifts that people get in return. So on the lower tiers, which are 5 and 10, it's early access to some of my videos, or at $10, it's the SCF files that I use to create the videos and stuff like that added on. And then there's the $50 tier, which is actually the most popular, is the one where I give a monthly teaching game. And that's done on OGS and with a Zoom conference to review the game, so that we get to actually talk to each other.
That is an incredible deal, folks, to get to actually spend personal time with Michael talking about Go is just amazing. I think, frankly, you're underpriced, but folks, get in quick before he figures it out and raises his rates. But no, good stuff. I know last year you were talking about maybe dipping your toe into that, so I'm glad you took the plunge, and it's definitely the way to go. And I'm already seeing some comments here from people who are liking it and enjoying it. So Stephen will put all the different links in there so you can support Michael on Patreon, because it's been tough. This has been a tough year for everybody, as we all know. So it has not been a normal year. So it's definitely important to support those, whether it's a local thing or especially in the Go world. We want people like Michael to be able to continue teaching and doing, and the amount of free content that Michael has provided is, just amazing. So I should
You're so right about the Go scene, Chris, because so many events have been canceled, and people in America are probably noticing also, because some of the international events where people were supposed to come to Japan and participate,
that's right,
all of them were canceled. It's very disappointing. It's
very disappointing. It's been a huge hardship. And so, just step up. But the great thing about this is that, it's you're not just donating because you want to feel good about it. You actually get something back for it with this Patreon. You're getting actual tangible benefits. So again, Stephen will put that link in there. Check it out. Whatever you want to do that. You'll be able to support. And I will tell you that for years now, actually, I've been getting emails from folks, we're putting out all this free content and they want to know, how do we give money to Michael? So now there's a way to do it. So, and it all goes right to Michael. You don't take any of it. It just, I think Patreon maybe takes some tiny little, management.
It's pretty reasonable. I think, it depends on what level you are. I think it's about 10%, and there would be a charge for the taking care of the money anyway.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah,
that's a good job. All right. So on with the game. We are, I can't believe this. I had to actually, you asked me about this. I had to look it up because it's been so long. We are finally, can you believe it? We are finally to AG versus AG number 50.
Yeah. I didn't remember which game we were on.
That's amazing. And just so folks know, there's still 5 more AlphaGo versus AlphaGo games, which from the
and
Chinese.
We're talking about AlphaGo 0.
Yeah. And I think we have 5 other sort of official, unofficial games.
Well, originally they disclosed 50 games, but then they gave 5 more games to a Chinese internet channel.
Right.
And those were disclosed eventually also. So those are free to use. And they were at the same level. They were the same time frame, I think.
So we'll get to those, folks. We're planning at this point for the foreseeable future, doing this at least once a month. It really depends on Michael's schedule. If we can pop in some extra ones, we will. Just stay tuned. Watch Michael's channel. Watch the AGA's channel. It'll be. We'll get the word out. All right. What can you? What's the sort of the bottom line of Game 50 that we should be looking for?
Bottom line. Okay, it's going to be really interesting in opening and early middle game. So, do you want just 1 point or 3 points about the game?
I tell you what, normally I can only handle 1, but I'm feeling pretty frisky. Give me 3 points.
Okay, we're going to start with a Chinese variant of the opening, which is pretty unseen nowadays in professional play. They don't do it anymore because there's a way that people have to play against that. So first we're going to see the Chinese variant, and we're going to see a variation of the 3-3 invasion, which was kind of a no-no before. And it's become a viable variation. I'm going to talk about how that's happening. And then we're going to see some crazy stuff about how white is going to reduce the Chinese opening. And it's going to involve that attachment at the start point, that is so famously the new move that computer programs tell us to play.
I tried that. I went. I visited my old friend Phil Stress. You know Phil very well, and
Yes.
I was playing some games with him. I tried it. It did not work out well. So I'm going to be paying special attention here because I had a vague memory of how it's supposed to go, but it did not go.
That's not going to be good enough.
You are so right.
That's not going to be good enough. No.
Not nearly good enough. Not nearly good. All right. So let's take. But just before we get into it, reminder to folks. Shoot your comments, your questions, Stephen and Eva-Dee, and I will try and keep an eye on the chat, and we'll relay those to Michael. But with that said, Brother Redmond, the floor is yours.
Okay, I'll start the game. So do you see the board moving now? Let's just take it to the miniature Chinese opening.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this move was pretty popular before AlphaGo, and then after a while, like it's not getting such great scores with most of the computer programs. And it sort of died out. So you don't see people playing it. You'll see them playing stuff like the large corner enclosure and stuff like that. Okay, so white jumps into 3 point. And black plays here. So this is the move I was going to talk about in the upper right corner here.
Okay.
Where white jumps out on the third line. And this is a position where normally white would just do something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes you would see white crawl. And these are both viable moves. These are moves that white could have played. Even if you ask a computer, there's probably going to be a very subtle difference in the score. It's not a big deal. But when the ladder favors white, sometimes you see white playing this move. So the ladder I'm talking about is, I should turn the sound off. This ladder. And so the ladder favors white. So if this ladder favors black, you probably won't see white playing that way. So when the ladder favors white, black is going to push on the fourth line, white extends, and then black can cut on the other side. So the whole point here was that if black had originally cut on the other side, then white would have just captured the one stone. And this is actually, it's one of the josekis. It's the same as playing the joseki, the double hane here.
Mm-hmm.
And although this is a joseki, in the beginning of the game, people generally say that this is going to be good for white. So it's a very subtle difference that probably doesn't make any difference to anyone but top professionals. But this is slightly better for white. And if you run this through a computer program, one with the neural networks, you'll probably, in most cases, you'll see the score go up slightly for white when white gets this variation compared to black playing, for instance, something like this or something like this. It's going to be relatively better for white usually. So the double hane is something you see more often towards the, let's see, where did I put the double hane? The double hane is something you see more often towards the middle game or end game, where the corner territory is going to be more important. So capturing the corner like this, towards the end of the game, it's going to be more and more valuable for black to capture the corner territory. It's just that the center of the board tends to shrink towards the end of the game. And so in many cases, the corner is going to be getting more important. It's relative. So so black doesn't really want to go that road at this point. Black doesn't want to get into this variation, which is supposed to be a slight gain for white. So black pushes, white extends, and then black can cut on this side. So now if white takes it. So this is the stuff that is going to be worth watching for the Q players, I'd say. This is really important information that in this case, this exchange for the black stone for the white stone, that's a huge gain for black. So that's really bad for white. This would be a local loss for white. So when black cuts here now.
Just a point of clarification, Michael, and the reason for that is because it's over concentrated for white, right?
Yes, it's just that the value, when we say that the double hane, going back to the double hane variation, when we say that this is very slightly good for white, that's not going to be true anymore if we add this stone and this stone. So the black stone is really valuable towards the center of the stone of the board, while the white stone is basically something like it's a very small move comparatively.
Got it. Thank you.
So it's as if what I did just now is called tewari. It's a position. You take a position that you know something about, and you add stones on it to compare it with a different position that you come up with. And that allows you to sort of diagnose whether this position is, when I look at it this way, it's obvious that black has gained something. So I'd say that was bad. So the whole point was that black did not want to play the cut inside when black could not capture in a ladder. So if this is going to happen, it's actually a huge gain for white to have captured this stone, and it's going to make a big difference when black gets a stone here. So in the game variation, in this variation, if black later ends up playing something like this or like this, then there's going to be a huge difference in the size of the corner territory if white has to ignore that for some reason. And so it's better for black to be able to cut here on the second line directly. And, you know, for Q players, that's sometimes hard to really grasp. Is it really that important? It's pretty important for high-level play. So it's a significant difference that this is going to have more effect on the corner when black jumps in. Okay, so this is the Tetsuji move, and you find this in a lot of Go books. And this is sort of the fact that this move is such a nice move to play is one of the reasons that people used to think that this whole variation was supposed to be bad for white. But then AlphaGo is very happy to play it with the white stones. And so people had to change their assessment. And I think I understand to a certain degree why this is working for white. Just to give you one more variation to show why it was bad for black to be cutting on the wrong side here. When white happens to push through here, and black plays here, and we get into a fight like this, the corner group is going to die. So again, that would not have been true if white had the capture state like this. It would have been like that. White would have been alive. So that's another reason for black to want to cut on the left side. So white captures the one stone, black plays here, and white curls around. So what we used to say about this, professional players used to say that this is obviously bad for white because white has all those stones on the second line. It actually, there's two things to talk about. The fact that this black wall here, although it's a nice wall there, you can see that on the other side, towards the corner, all of the black's wall liberties are filled. So for instance, it would be a lot better for black if we could just take these two stones off and have an open liberty there. And you wouldn't believe how important this is. There's so many cases where it's going to turn into some kind of a race to capture or something, where that one liberty is going to be pretty vital. Oh yeah, so just to go back to the game. So yeah, so that's something that to bear in mind. And there's the fact that white has such a solid position that actually, this didn't happen in the game. I'm sort of disappointed that white never played here. But when I researched this game with, I usually use Katago mostly. I like to use Katago. That's the program I have on my computer to research the game. This move was coming up all the time. And so the point is that white is reinforced in the corner sufficiently with this very solid shape. It's just the fact that white's shape there is so, although it's low, it's very, very solid. It means that white can fairly freely play moves like this. And black will usually answer here. So white, I'll show you an example of how that could possibly work. So black jumps here, and white played here. So this is an example of, for instance, if black did something like this, we could actually have an example of that happening in real play. So white would use that forcing move to make some space there. Actually, white would probably curl once more. Something like this. And it's with relative ease, white's going to have a living shape here inside the black area. So in many cases, white is going to be using this forcing move to help white make a shape on the outside. And it's a very important forcing move. It's very useful. So that's one thing. So that's the 2 points I would say. The fact that black's wall is sort of short of liberties, and the fact that white's position is so solid that white can play these forcing moves. And also if white ends up running out towards the center, that black group is, it doesn't have any eyes attached to it. So there's some potential that the black group could become weak. And of course, AlphaGo is going to make use of all that those possibilities in a fairly amazing way. So here we are. So that was the first stage. I wanted to talk about that 3-3 invasion and how sometimes it's working. This move here is sometimes working. Oh, the move here. Oh, not working for me. Okay. The key control was not working for me. So I'll just go back to them. So this move here, it's working when the ladder favors white. So that's something, it's important to remember that the ladder has something to do with it.
Right.
Yeah. And white invades on the right side. So black played here.
Just a quick thing. What are, just for folks to know, are there other options, or is that really the only place for white to go?
I'd say that that's a point that's really important. And just I'll show you the next move, and that sort of answers your question. The computer will waver between these two moves. And basically, I think the optimal idea is a combination of these two moves sort of interacting with each other. And that's what I'm going to be going, that's going to be the deep dive of this commentary, is how these two moves interact with each other. So I think it would be feasible for white to actually start on the other side with this move. But it would probably end up being a very similar idea. So another answer to your question is, it sort of depends on how wide black has played the extension. So for instance, if black has played on the star point instead, then white would probably be looking at moves on the other side. So maybe at some point playing something like this. So it sort of depends on where black's played the extension. I think that when black has played the wide extension is in the game, white does sort of want to, oh, I'm going in the wrong direction. When black has played the wide extension, white does want to look at the space there between that black wall, which, as I said, this black wall doesn't have eyes. That's important. If white gets to break through there, for instance, if black had answered white's move with something like this, if white gets to break through there and actually gets out into the center, that black group is not going to be very strong. In fact, white would have potential to attack black in this variation. So black plays the attachment on top, and white dodges into the corner. So basically, at this point, white's not completely committed yet to living on the right side. So white can try to live underneath, or white can try to break through towards the center. White still has both of those possibilities. So for instance, if white plays very straightforwardly like this, at some point, white might want to use this move, but after playing all of these moves on the side, it's probably too late. Or if white pushes out, then black's going to take a key point move. So this would be a more straightforward way for white to do it, but maybe not so successful as it was in the game. You can see that 8 is an important point. It's making a base for the black group, and it's taking away white's base. So it's a double. White's going to break out into the center, but black is going to have some eye space, and white will not. So it's going to be playable for black.
Well, and related to that, when white is obviously in black's sphere of influence, right? So is white looking to live or looking to sort of escape out, or just sort of trying to keep all options open? What's the thinking here?
Well, in this variation, if white's going to be under attack and is going to be trying to survive without so many options of attacking black in reverse, then black would end up having a lot of opportunities to just surround this area on a large scale. So that would be what black would be trying.
Right.
And so that's why this is sort of not the optimal idea for white. The fact that white's group is, when we compare the white group to the black group on the top here, the black group seems to be a bit stronger. So for instance, if I continue that with something like this, you can see that the black group already has, it's pretty much alive already. And so this would be an example of how white would be sort of struggling, and black would have an opportunity to be building a line of stones here while chasing the white group. And it would be relatively difficult for white to erase this area on the lower side. If black can secure that area, it's going to be a win for black.
Right.
So white would be, when in a variation like this, white would like to be able to have opportunities to attack black in the upper right area. And then that would mean that white would get some tempos to be able to jump into the lower right corner.
Right.
So that's why you see AlphaGo as white. It's refusing to commit itself here because it doesn't want to get into that kind of thing. And it's going to try something here. And so this move is the main topic of this commentary today, because it's actually pretty difficult to use, like we were talking about.
Yes, it is.
Pretty difficult to use.
Really difficult.
And part of the problem is that black has about 4 options for the next move.
Yep.
Generally, when your opponent attaches against your stone, you should be thinking of a hane or an extension, nobi. So that would be one of these 4 moves. So there's this move.
Yep.
Or there's this move.
Yep.
Or there's the extensions.
Yep.
And the extensions.
Yep.
So generally, an extension on the 3rd line like that, generally speaking, this kind of move is considered to be a bit passive.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And a move like this is the more active or aggressive move. And so when black has a lot of stones in the area, the first moves you want to think about are the hane, the aggressive moves. So which do you want to start with first?
Oh, let's start with the inside, the Q3, hane.
The Q3, that's a good choice. And that's a good choice because it's going to demonstrate how that stone that's we left on the side there is going to collaborate with this white stone in the corner. They're going to work together here.
I wish I could say I did that on purpose, but okay.
Yeah, that was a great choice. So when white covers here, first you have to think about the cut. But when black cuts here, the ladder is going to be good for white.
Right.
And when you have a Chinese style opening, it's pretty common that the diagonal corner is going to be occupied by a white stone. So early in the game, just because black has already played something like the first 3-4 moves black played were on the right side of the board. So the upper left corner is usually a white stone. So the ladder is going to favor white. So that's no good. No good for black. So black usually plays an Atari from this side and like this. So to go back to the old days, what we used to say was this is obviously bad for white. And we compared it with a position that we knew something about. So the position we compared it with was we took away this black stone and we put it on this side. And we said that this is a normal move, right?
Right.
And if white plays there and black plays there, this is a sequence of normal moves.
And
no one would be stupid enough to play this exchange.
No,
and that's the shape we got. Right. So that exchange has filled one of white's liberty. Obviously bad.
Right.
So that was the explanation for why this is bad.
Okay.
So to go back to the game, that's true. But gave you a little preview there. Okay, so that's true. That's true, but you notice that I changed the direction of the 3-4 point. That was giving white inroads into the right side. So that diagram was created by putting this black stone on this 3-4 point.
Right.
And that gave white a lot of room to get into the right side of the board, which was important. So black's original stone was put on the wrong spot there. So the whole point here is that when white plays here and gets to curl around into the right side was where white wanted to go. White wants to get underneath black in the right side, and actually has a great continuation with the slide here. And when white slides here, like if black does something on this side, then white's going to be able to start moving out on that side, and it's going to get a lot of territory. Just basically, for instance, something like this. So that would be the hane at 8 would be really big. Black's probably going to actually play on this side. This is better. And something like, you can already see white's settled. It's a settled group.
Mm-hmm.
Black is not even finished closing in from the center. Black's territory here is pretty limited. So already this is a success for white. And it was so easy. The whole point is that although there's this this imagined exchange of this stone for this stone, yes, it was bad locally, but in the big picture, white is getting into the right side, which is much more important. And the fact that white can continue with this move, the way these moves that white has played in the lower right here, and the fact that white started with this invasion, they work beautifully together. They're just, it's a great combination.
Let me ask a question. And again, just let me remind folks that, if you've got questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we are monitoring that. And we want to make sure that, we get your questions answered. But in the meantime, let me ask a question, which is, in thinking about, how this situation is to handle what's really going on here, right? So if you run that sequence out to where you just were, where white's got the settled position and black is yeah, exactly right there. So yeah, white is settled nicely. White's certainly alive, but can't black also be satisfied with this? Black has pretty much finished off the lower right, and the upper group has no problem either. And it's Sente for black, yes.
Well, what you say would probably be true at lower levels, but at high levels, this would be highly unsatisfactory for white, just because, okay. I mean, for black, because we've ended up with a white territory there. So it's the territory on the whole right side of the board is pretty much balanced now.
Okay.
And white, and another thing about this Joseki in the upper right here, which is now considered playable for white, it has a very strong control over this side, just because white's so strong in the upper right corner. And so it's because of that, white has enough sufficient control over the rest of the board. So slightly, it's probably pretty subtle, but it's an advantage for white. So there was a question about after white slided.
Yeah, I was going to pass that along, the R7 slide, how to handle that. Do you want to deal with that?
I'll move somewhere around here. White would probably start with the honey here and just start building on this side. At some point, white can always play here and try to connect underneath. And it's not as if white has to save everything. If white does end up, for instance, if white ends up attacking that black group on the, well, at least black would not play 11 again. But if white ends up attacking that black group in the upper right, white's going to have opportunities to do something with the lower right part of the board later, because white's definitely attacking it. White is already pretty close to being alive, and black is in a lot of trouble in the upper right. So white's going to attack for a while and get a strong position in the center of the board, and then white will be able to just float in points like this. You might even see AlphaGo trying stuff like this if white gets some stones towards the center of the board. So white, by attacking in the upper right, white's going to have opportunities to redeem what happened in the lower right here. It is a local loss, but white's going to have opportunities to take care of that.
And so I think white has to be very flexible here, is what you're saying. Interesting question here. From Rory Tate about whether you think the avoidance of some shapes by professionals was incorrect because of the quote-unquote feeling that the position was bad, or was it just a difficulty that people had in evaluating the overall board?
I think our feelings about positions are pretty reliable.
Yeah.
And basically in the beginning of the game, with this whole open board, like trying to calculate the situation and get an end result is impossible for humans. Like,
right.
We can calculate local sequences, but with the whole board open like this, we can't really say how it's going to end. And we make judgments, we get experience. And so I think looking at what we've learned from computer programs, I think we've been going wrong when we try to use our logic. And so human logic, sometimes we you can fool yourself. You can logic yourself into argue yourself into believing something that's not quite true. And so I think that the emphasis of the mistake that supposed mistake that White was playing by playing the star point here, filling one of his own liberties. We overemphasized the bad effect here. Obviously, if we could somehow take this stone off and evaluate that with the same computer program, not having this exchange would give White a better result. It would give a better score for White. So it's obviously it's a bad exchange, but the mistake was that we allowed that to overshadow the overall picture in which White is getting into the right side here.
That makes sense.
That's a basic reason for this move at the star point. Just to go back a few moves, this move at the star point, it's the basic reason for it to possibly succeed is the fact that the normal moves, you might say, the moves that we used to play were moves like this. Sometimes you would see people play like this. Moves inside the lower side, they just didn't have enough room for them. So they were cramped. And even in this position where the lower side looks about the same width as the right side, so I'm talking about these areas here, they seem to be about the same size. And they are about the same size. But actually the right side is much more important. So the fact that White wants to have opportunities to move into the right side is one of the reasons that this move works, because the move you suggested, this move here, is probably Black's strongest move. It's the strongest move if we just look at the corner, but White has this reputation about it.
Got it. One other question, this is from Badgercraft, about whether it's unsatisfactory for Black because White had no right living there in the first place. And I think I get uncomfortable when I get in my own mind, thinking, oh, Black, my opponent has no right. I mean, just as a sort of a philosophical thing, I mean, if they can pull stuff off, so that's not a technical Go answer that I'm giving you, Badgercraft, but I think I would caution you to be wary of using ideas of, somebody has no right, unless it's like a really small area in a corner where you really don't. But from a technical perspective, do you have an answer to that?
When you have a moyo like this, a large area that you control, and you've played like it's has potential to be square, right? Black has played both the right and lower sides, sure. And your opponent dives in. In general, like it always depends, but in general, if your opponent is squeezed to something really small, like a 2i living shape, and just 2 points there, and you've surrounded it completely, so you've got a wall that controls the rest of the board and stuff like that, then then you can allow it to live and you can be happy. Or if your opponent ends up with a weak group and you have strong groups surrounding it and you're chasing it out, and you're going to be able to use that to improve your position on the rest of the board, you should be happy. And I think this is kind of like a textbook example of when Black should not be happy, because White has gained something like 7-8 points there and is alive. And it's hard to say exactly what Black has gained apart from the corner territory, which was probably Black's anyway.
Got it.
So yeah, so you want to have some kind of an established advantage that you get from the attack against their opponent's group.
Good, that makes sense. Thank you. Good questions, folks. Keep them coming. That's what we're here for.
Okay, so that was number one, the first move. So now let's try the other honey. Okay, so the problem with this honey is that it's going to give White opportunities to live in the corner.
Yeah.
So depending on how Black plays, you're going to see very sharp changes in how White handles it. So in the first variation, White managed to connect up to that stone on the side, and White was living on the right side. When Black plays this move, that's not going to be possible. So White's going to treat this stone in a very different manner. White's not going to try to lift that stone. Sometimes White's just going to sacrifice it. Sometimes White is going to have the tempo and is going to try to break through here, sacrificing most of the stones, and just get some extra profit in the center of the board. So that's how White is going to treat that marked stone now. It's going to be treated as a light stone. Although White played a stone inside there, it's not a complete loss, because when Black is going to finish it off, Black's probably going to play a stone here anyway. So it's as if Black had played this move on the fourth line, and the loss here It's like it's a loss, but it's not important. Oh, I'm jumping ahead again. So here, back to the game. If black plays this way, the weakness of this move is that it gives white this hane into the 3/3 point, which is an extremely important move. And when white does this, white is going to be able to live in the corner. And again, when black does stuff like this, we have issues with the ladder that starts with white cutting here and capturing the one stone. So yeah, maybe I should do that in the diagram. So if we have something like this, relatively simplified diagram, if white gets to capture the ladder, it's going to be good for white. So black is probably going to connect here. And if black plays here, white's alive. I think I made a variation with black playing here. Yeah. And white cuts here. Cutting here without the cut here, this is really neat. This would be vulgar, playing the Taris. Cutting here first is a lot better, because in order to capture this stone, black has to play here anyway. So in some cases, white's going to cut on the other side. In fact, I think I did that. Oh, no, I didn't. So yeah. So white's alive in the corner and has some aji towards the side. Black has to put a stone in there. Now white's going to try stuff towards the center. And white's pretty fluid in how white's going to treat this. For instance, if black plays here, black can capture those stones. And here this move. I talked about this point before. This is always a forcing point. It's a very important. It comes into this variation also. So it comes up all the time.
Wow.
Black will stop the connection. Something like this. And you can see white has pushed black down on the side there after living in the corner. So the important part was living in the corner. And the secondary part was that white could still make some use of this stone by sort of fading out into the center. In this way, black did manage to kill it. But white is getting some profit towards the center of the board. That's a nice position white has in the center. So this is good for white. And yeah, just I'm getting a bit carried away here. I also researched this move. White cuts here. So this is really amazing, this cut. It's making a second use of those two dead stones here.
Wow.
And let's see, what variations did I make for this? Lost myself. So if black plays here, if black plays on the other side, for instance, obviously white's going to get something extra in this direction. So for instance, something like this white would be gaining something from the corner, or white might just play this way. So that's just a little extra territory, and then white would just sacrifice everything towards the side. So white would be satisfied with that small gain. And it's actually not small, it's several points. So black probably wants to play on the other side. Let's see, here. And with this exchange, now white has potential to live on the side. So white plays here. And this is actually a direct threat against black. If black plays something like this, this is going to be disaster, because if black takes the one stone, the three black stones are going to die.
Oh, that is very clever. That is sweet.
This would be disappointing too, like everything's falling apart.
Disappointing. That's not the word I was thinking of, but all right.
Yeah, so black has to play a move in the center, and white gets an easy eye. Everybody read that, right? Yeah. White can jump to the side to get an extra eye in this area. And again, the fact that white's group in the corner is so strong helps. Or white can just play at this point and get an eye in this area. So that's white's second eye, with the first eye being already established here. So that was it was relatively easy for white to live once white got these two forcing moves at 22 and 24. So I sort of went overboard with these 30 move variations. But
it's all right.
They're really fascinating.
Don't worry. By the comments, people are digging it, so don't worry about it. It's all good.
So the main line of this story is the fact that white can live in the corner here. And so the simplified variation is when black plays here and white just slides. So mainly it's the fact that white can live in the corner here, and in this case, white's just going to sacrifice that stone on the side. And this was the suggested move. This is a point where I would really not know where to play in the center of the board. But basically, black is being reduced to just the right side territory and the lower right corner territory here. Taking this corner away from black was pretty valuable.
Is 10 the game move?
No. This was the suggested move that Kadawa wanted to play.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And this is not the game variation. This is, if you ask a computer program, this is probably just bad for black.
Yeah.
It's not a difference that would finish a human game.